youngest person to be executed in the 21st century in Texas, was Toronto Patterson. Toronto Patterson was born less than 2 weeks after the USA signed the International Covenant on Civil and Political Rights in 1977. And he was sentenced to death 3 years after the USA ratified the treaty in 1992. Article 6 and 5 prohibits the use of the death penalty against people who were under 18 at the time of the crime. A prohibition which stems from recognition of a young person's immaturity, impulsiveness, vulnerability to peer pressure, and capacity for rehabilitation. Since 1990, the Convention on the Rights of the Child, which carries the same prohibition, has been ratified by 191 countries, all but the USA and Somalia. When the USA ratified the ICCPR, it filed a reservation purporting to exempt it from the prohibition on the execution on child offenders. The Human Rights Committee, the expert body established by the ICCPR to oversee implementation of the treaty, has stated that the reservation is invalid and should be withdrawn. It has confirmed that the prohibition cannot be derogated from, even in times of emergency, and has deplored the USA's continuing execution of child offenders. Since 1998, there have been 15 executions of child offenders documented worldwide, 10 in the USA. Yemen and Pakistan, 2 of the 6 other countries reported to have executed child offenders since 1990, have since abolished such use of the death penalty. It was recently reported that 74 child offenders who had remained on death row in Pakistan have had their death sentences commuted. Another of the 6 countries, Democratic Republic of Congo, commuted the death sentences of 5 child offenders in 2001. On January 27, 2004, the U.S. Supreme Court decided to review whether executing 16- and 17-year-olds violates the Constitution's ban on cruel and unusual punishment. The review comes after the Missouri Supreme Court overturned the death sentence of 17-year-old Christopher Simmons. Roper v. Simmons will be reviewed by the justices this fall, 4 of whom have called the juvenile death penalty inconsistent with evolving standards of decency in a civilized society. Since 1642, in the 13 colonies, the United States under the Articles of Confederation, and the United States under the Constitution, an estimated 364 juvenile offenders have been put to death by the individual states and the federal government. Toronto Patterson began selling crack cocaine when he was 15 years old. Patterson belonged to a gang when he was a high school sophomore. He wore his gang colors to school, carried a beeper, defied authority, and failed to attend his classes. Patterson threatened to kill school authorities when they confiscated his beeper, and dropped out of high school during his sophomore year. The year before the murders, Patterson possessed a .38 handgun and a 9mm handgun. That same year, he fired a MAC-12 gun at one of his friends. On September 6, 1994, after police officers found a loaded 9mm handgun in Patterson's vehicle during a routine traffic stop, Patterson was charged as a juvenile for unlawful weapon possession. The case was ultimately dismissed. Patterson, a drug dealer, stole money from a drug customer on at least 2 occasions. On March 10 and March 12, 1994, Patterson sold cocaine to an undercover FBI informant in an area of Dallas that was heavily occupied by gang members. As a drug dealer, Patterson earned $500 to $700 a day and developed an affinity for expensive chrome and gold or all-gold automobile wheels. Patterson owned a car that was equipped with such wheels, but it was stolen in April 1995. Patterson was aware that Vernon Stiff, a cousin who was serving time in the penitentiary, stored a BMW with expensive wheels at the home of Evelyn Stiff, Patterson's great-aunt. On June 6, 1995, around 10 or 11 a.m., Patterson left his girlfriend's house and informed a friend that he was going to physical therapy for a back injury. On that same day, Patterson drove his grandmother's car to Evelyn Stiff's home and visited with Kimberly Brewer, one of Evelyn's daughters. After chatting with Kimberly for about 15 minutes, Patterson went to physical therapy. Thereafter, Patterson returned to Evelyn's house and fatally shot Kimberly and her two children, 3-year-old Ollie and 6-year-old Jennifer, with a .38 revolver. Patterson shot Kimberly in the head as she relaxed on a living room recliner. He shot Jennifer in the head as she watched cartoons and played in her bedroom. Ollie, who was on the bed in the same room, was killed by a gunshot to the head. Ollie also had gunshot wounds to her left hand and neck. The children's injuries indicated that Patterson was only 3 feet away when he shot them. And Ollie's injuries were consistent with an adult standing over her and firing downward, while she cowered in the corner of the bed and covered her ears. After committing the murders, Patterson proceeded to the garage, unfastened 3 of the wheels from the BMW, and placed them in his grandmother's car. He was unable to unfasten the 4th wheel. Patterson did not take any other valuable items from the house. Around 2 or 3 p.m., Patterson returned to his girlfriend's house looking scared and out of breath. He immediately changed his clothes and explained to his friend that he had just robbed and shot someone in an attempt to rob the person of his wheels, and that he needed help carting 3 of the wheels into the house. That same afternoon, Patterson tried to sell the stolen wheels to Aycock Tire and Wheel, but because he was unable to make a deal with the store manager, he kept the wheels in his girlfriend's garage. Police officers arrested Patterson on murder charges the same day, and searched both Patterson's vehicle and the residence of Patterson's girlfriend. The clothing that Patterson wore earlier in the day had tiny spots of blood that were consistent with a blood pattern that would result from shooting someone in the head. On June 7, 1995, Patterson submitted 2 written statements to a police detective, admitting to, and apologizing for, his involvement in the murders. In the first statement, Patterson claimed that he gave the stolen wheels to 2 Jamaicans who actually did the shooting. In the second statement, after he was confronted with the fact that police had located the wheels at his girlfriend's house, Patterson admitted that he was the one who committed the triple homicide. Patterson testified in his defense at trial, and presented a twist on the Jamaicans made me do it story, claiming that he had nothing to do with the murders and that his previous statements to the contrary were coerced. Toronto Patterson was convicted of capital murder in Dallas in November of 1995. The conviction was affirmed on direct appeal in January of 1999. The following month, in February of 1999, The Texas Court of Criminal Appeals also denied Toronto relief in his state post-conviction application for writ of habeas corpus. In October of 1999, the United States Supreme Court denied a petition for certiorari following Patterson's direct appeal. The convicting court immediately set an execution date for February 24, 2000. However, on December 16, 1999, the Federal District Court in Dallas stayed Patterson's execution pending litigation of his federal petition for writ of habeas corpus. Patterson filed his federal petition on October 4, 1999. In August of 2001, however, the Federal District Court denied relief, and, in September, denied Patterson's application for certificate of appealability. Patterson filed an application for certificate of appealability and brief in support in the United States Fifth Circuit Court of Appeals in November of 2001. The Attorney General was recently granted an extension of time to respond to Patterson's appellate brief until January 11, 2002. Toronto Marquis Patterson, at the age of 24, was executed by lethal injection on the 28th of August 2002, in Huntsville, Texas for killing his cousin and her 2 children in their home. His last meal was 6 pieces of crispy fried chicken, 4 jalapeno peppers, 4 buttered buttermilk biscuits, chef salad, 6 Sprites, and white cake with white icing. His last words were, "I am sorry for the pain, sorry for what I caused my friends, family and loved ones." Toronto Patterson, now 24, said while strapped to the death chamber gurney, "I feel a great deal of responsibility and guilt for what happened. I should be punished for the crime, but I do not think I should die for a crime I did not commit." Patterson said that while he was sorry, nothing could bring back the victims. He prayed his death would bring peace and unite his family. "I ask for your forgiveness and that you will all forgive me," he said. "I invite you all to my funeral. We are still family." As the drugs began taking effect, Patterson exhaled and then gasped. 9 minutes later at 6:20 p.m. Central Daylight Time, he was pronounced dead. Thank you for watching Death Row.